All right, welcome everyone to TCL 63's eighth weekly sync. So this week, I know y'all have been working hard on design. So I'll pass it over to Caitlin so we could see what y'all have been up to.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've heard great things from your design meeting just now. So, um, who is going to be starting us off, talking us through what you've been up to this week? It's a little bit different than usual. Um, Anyone want to start us off? Show us what you've been doing?
Sure, I think I can share screen and Raquel and I can talk through and the rest of the team member can also add in.
Great.
Let me share my screen. So this week we mainly documented all of what our progress is in this pull request. So we installed the Tailwind CSS and the Daisy UI, and we also added a Groove font for the whole app. And then Raquel made the logo and the strawberry theme, which you will see in a second. And then we also adjust most of the content to align at the center, and then added some styling to the nav link. And then we also added a legend for the list page, and specifically for the urgency tag, adjust its positions to make it more user-friendly. And we tested a bit about responsive design, but we will do another round at the end of next week. So that's a high-level summary, and now I can switch over to the app to show you what it looks like now. And Raquel, feel free to start.
Yeah, so we decided to go for strawberry because we saw the groups making with avocado, and I know all the fruits, and we were like, well, why not strawberry? I thought it was very cute. They liked it. It was, I think, came from me, and then they liked it. So yeah, that's how we chose. And then we looked for some background images. We found this one, and thanks to Adlan, we adjusted as it's supposed to be. For the berry cart, I basically just Googled a lot, some like berry cart, kind of like strawberry cart, and I found some examples and kind of inspired me to create that way, and everyone liked it, so we chose that one. We modified it to just adjust what everybody wanted to do. But yeah, that's basically it. And if we go and just test the app, so now we have this legend there with the days, just because we are thinking like, yes, we have this overdue text and we have the kind of soon tags, and we're thinking, okay, as a user, how would you know how soon is soon and how overdue is overdue, and so it was missing that, and we decided to add. At first, I think we want to add kind of like a pop-up when we pass through the overdue, the little tag. We want to see if we could just add the legend like that, but it would kind of overcomplicate a little bit. We didn't want to go overboard, so we just created the legend as we see on the screen. And we use Daisy UI for the inputs, and we just use one of the teams. Yeah, that's the team, one of the team colors. The blue on the bottom, as you guys saw in the previous in the homepage, that was one of the colors from the team. But I think that's basically it. I think, did we modify anything else, guys?
Also added this copy token feature, so
yes,
token is copied to the clipboard.
Yeah, and we are thinking about adding a logout feature as well, just because I feel like it's going to be easier, more user-friendly, is even helpful for us to be testing the app. We saw some of the groups creating kind of like a drop-down, that they had different lists that they had, so they could just change the list that way. So we can still try to implement that. I don't know if we have time, probably yes. We don't know how that's going to be important for us, but I think it's going to be a good idea. I think that's it. What else, Shangwan?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And then for the add item, we just styled it a little bit. Nothing major.
This looks amazing. You all should be really, really proud of yourselves. It's adorable, but also like it just looks very usable. Um, and yeah, I'm really impressed with how much you did in a week. That's like very, very impressive. I'd love to know more about kind of your process this week. How did you get here from the last time we saw you? What was the process like? How did you divvy up the work? Um, and how did you make decisions along the way as well?
Yeah, so we started with just a simple Google Doc, and then we list out like some of the resources we want to use, like illustration, what scenes, and start dropping on links. And then we also have a bunch of ideas on what features we want to add and what UI changes we want to make. And then for the past week, we will almost meet every day and keep working for 2 to 3 hours every day with the team. And
We have
Raquel,
also the Figma file.
yeah, Raquel is our design expert. So she made the Figma file and then the logo and find the icons. And Aslan, with his actually architect background, also adjusted the logo with, the background with Photoshop. Yeah.
I'll jump in and say that the three of them deserve all of the credit. I was more kind of like a passive watcher because I was really sick this week. So I'm hoping to, make up for it the coming week. That the first, I was behind the screen, so I was at most meetings, but for a
No,
couple
Karina,
of
you actually added the nav link feature. So when we go to this page,
Yes.
the nav link actually. leads
Well,
to
I don't remember. I remember just looking at the code. It's like, what did I work on this app? Because I couldn't remember, like for a few days, my brain was just really. So yeah, so it's like a week and only three of them. So yeah, kudos to them.
You all sound
then-
like you all really did a good job also just finding your niche and how to collaborate together as a team. It's like super impressive. Raquel, did I cut you off?
Oh no, I was just asking Shangwon if she would like to show the Figma file. It was, and thank you, Caitlin. Yeah, it was a lot of hard work, but definitely worth it. I think we are far ahead, and we're gonna have so much less stuff to work this week.
Yeah, it's much better than working up until the last minute and stressing out about trying to get everything done. You all have set yourselves up for, wrapping this up, really feeling good about your last week of effort.
I think it's also impressive how much has changed since Wednesday, because I'd seen like an early version of a Wednesday, and this is so much more polished compared to that early version. It's so much more cohesive in terms of the design. Like everything just fits together so much nicely now.
It was just basically a basic design in there. I just separated for the logo and typography and the color palette and the mood board. It's just a basic one. Just yeah.
Yeah, if any of you haven't worked in Figma before, this is a great tool to learn and get used to, because a lot of designers use Figma to create designs that you might work from in the future. It's beautiful. Wow. This is really, I'm amazed. I was not prepared for it to be this polished today. That's like really, really impressive. I know you all must have been put in a lot of work this week to get it to this state. So you guys should give yourselves a pat on the back, give yourselves a round of applause. It's amazing.
I should also add that they taught me Tailwind. Okay, so just I didn't do any, whatever they say I did, I don't remember. So it was here and there. But they also taught me Tailwind because they were working in Tailwind, so I couldn't contribute and also just ask questions. So they're really nice and figuring out the app and also asking my questions. So yeah, you can't ask for a better team.
Yeah, I think another thing about this week that's been so different than previous weeks is so many more decisions were up to you all to, like, it was such, in the previous weeks, you've had such a defined scope of what to do. And then this week and next week, it's like, okay, now go make it pretty. Do whatever you want, which can be very daunting. So I'm really impressed how well you all did a great job of listing out your criteria. Kind of, it looked like you had set up like an MVP must-have things, and then, you know, if you have time, nice to have kind of things, which is a really good way to do it. You want to make sure that you are doing the things that have to be done. So that you have something workable at the end. And then if you have time, which it seems like maybe you will have time this week, then you can start looking into some of the other things. Or again, after we wrap our 8 weeks together, if you all decide you want to continue working on it, then you have a list there of what you want to work on. So amazing. I can't get over this. It's so great.
Thank you.
I guess then we can pass it over for the learning module, unless y'all want, was there anyone else wanted to highlight anything from your design work so far? I can't wait to see what you all come back with next week.
All right, let me, I'll share my screen here. All right, so this will be our last learning module. It's kind of funny because we kind of went into so much of this just now on our call with Mark, thanks to Karina. So accessibility, what, why, and how. So just in case you weren't familiar with this abbreviation, A11Y, this basically stands for accessibility because there are 11 characters between the A and the Y. All right, so what is accessibility? From Wikipedia, web accessibility is the inclusive practice of ensuring that there are no barriers that prevent interaction with or access to websites on the World Wide Web by people with physical disabilities, situational disabilities, and socioeconomic restrictions on bandwidth and speed. When sites are correctly designed, developed, and edited, generally, all users have equal access to information and functionality. And W3C maintains a working group dedicated to web accessibility and publishes related standards. In the US, Section 508 requires government agencies to make websites accessible to people with disabilities. So some people with disabilities access websites using assistive technologies. These include screen readers, screen magnifiers, speech-to-text and other dictation software, assistive keyboards, refreshable braille displays, and many other tools. So while screen readers are more widely used than other assistive technologies, it's important not to equate AT with a screen reader. Popular screen readers include NVDA and JAWS on Windows, VoiceOver on macOS and iOS, and TalkBack on Android OS. So why? I mean, I think we've become very familiar with why we should make things accessible. But first and foremost, it is the right thing to do. So the web provides access not only to information, but to work, play, community, and essential life tasks. And everyone deserves to be able to use the web with dignity. You may also be legally obligated to make your website accessible, so it would depend on your region. And fun fact, more people in the US access websites using assistive technologies than people who live in Canada. So some estimate that 20% of website visitors have some sort of disabilities. So making your pages more accessible for people with disabilities makes them more accessible for everyone, because you're basically, you're covering all cases. I have to be honest, this is actually one of my favorite slides with respect to accessibility. Like, I never actually thought about it in this way, but accessibility issues could be permanent, temporary, or situational. So in the case of touch, it could be a permanent disability with a person who's missing a limb, and specifically an arm. It could be temporary, somebody who has an arm injury, or situational. There's a new parent who has to hold a baby with one arm, or even in cases where you just don't have both arms available for use. In terms of visual impairments, somebody could be permanently blind. There could be a temporary situation where they have cataracts, or it could be situational in cases of of distracted drivers. In terms of hearing, somebody could be permanently deaf. It could be temporary deafness as a result of an ear infection, or it could just be someone in a very loud environment who is unable to perceive sound or sound-related cues at that point. And then lastly, with respect to speech, someone could be nonverbal. There could be a temporary situation, for example, laryngitis, where they're unable to speak, or someone with a heavy accent. And this is always an interesting choice of Viking to represent this. But yeah, so just bear in mind that accessibility does not just include permanent situations. There are many other situations to take into consideration where accessibility features would actually be useful. So how? So one quote we should bear in mind here is, the best ARIA is no ARIA at all. We need to use semantic HTML wherever possible. So follow some simple best practices. First off, always use valid semantic HTML where possible. Always include all attributes in your image tags, and use ARIA attributes if necessary. Because I believe as time has gone by, HTML has become more semantic, or there have been more semantic tags for specific cases where ARIA isn't always required anymore. So if those tags exist, use those. Otherwise, use ARIA if you really have to. Ensure all content is reachable via keyboard. Ensure all interactive elements have reasonable target sizes. And I think that would also extend to touch interfaces where you have to use a finger input. And ensure that content and tab ordering make sense. Use sufficient color contrast. And as we've covered before, don't use only color to signify state. All right, so what is ARIA? So ARIA stands for Accessible Rich Internet Applications, and it's a technical specification by W3C, same people who write the HTML spec. So you can write ARIA to your HTML to have better control over the accessibility of your websites and applications. Now, misusing ARIA can introduce problems for AT users. So try to use HTML to the best of your ability, and then add ARIA when you reach the limits of HTML. And how do we use ARIA? So consider a UI element you've probably seen on your smartphone, which would be a toggle switch, for example, that allows you to turn a setting on and off. HTML has no concept of a switch, but we could use ARIA to make one. So you could define a button, give it a role, and define the ARIA check status of it. Now, the attributes role and ARIA checked work together to tell AT users that there is a switch called Wi-Fi and that it is on. But we'd still need to add some CSS and JavaScript to make it look and function like a switch. How do we not use ARIA? So ARIA also has some overlap with HTML. And the following two elements are equivalent from the perspective of an AT user. So here I have a button element, and then you have a div that's basically given an ARIA role of button. But when we use HTML to make a button, the browser bundles in other things. So it provides CSS to make the button look like a button. It also allows users to click on a button with a space and enter keys. So basically, we should always use HTML to do as much as we can. And HTML might be a good thing to keep on top of, because ever so often they will add new elements with time. So how do we identify accessibility issues for remediation? So there are automated tools such as Axe, but it only finds about 30% of issues. Guided audits, such as those built into Accessibility Insights. You could test directly using assistive technologies such as screen readers and Windows high contrast mode. You can have audits done by accessibility testers by companies such as Fable Tech Labs. And then lastly, the real benchmark, feedback from real users with disabilities. So demo time. So we just want to go through 2 examples of pages and their accessibility features. So in here, I'm just going into the accessibility tab and I'm enabling the tab order. All right, can you all see tab numbers in this case? Yeah. What are your thoughts on the tab order in this case? Is it logically laid out? Karina, say you shake your head.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't have the eyes of an old person, but yeah, that's like 4, 6, 8, 5, 7, 9. Yeah, so they seem to be random.
Well,
So
it
tab,
looks like
assuming that somebody used tab index for this, like how, how?
so. Yeah. So this actually is an example of a case where it's actually well laid out. So there is some system or some order to it. So the first tab would actually be the search box here, and I should say the icon itself. But as we tab through, there actually is some order. So from there jumps to each card, and then you're able to navigate through each one.
Oh, I see.
So
So so there's the tab for the card, and then there's the tab for the button. Oh, I see. Okay.
So there, I believe this is an edit button here. Yes, so you could actually tab to the edit button, and then tab to cook it to actually open the ingredients. You can zoom a bit more.
So, but you can't actually. So this is not this is just an image. You can't actually tab through it. No, it's not a site.
So no, yeah. So you're basically tabbing from button to button in some order.
But I'm assuming because the chocolate cake has a tab it's 5, the mom spaghetti it's 7, so then it first is going to the whole card, like including the image and the info.
Yes. It seems to be jumping from button to button. Yeah, so 7, 8, 9, 10. So in a sense, that there is some logical order with each card and the buttons. Or at least with the interactive elements for each card. So this is exhibit 1. Let's look at exhibit number 2. All right, so let's show tabbing on the site, and here we go. So can you find tab number 1? So yeah, so it's actually over here. This is tab number 1. Over here, tab again goes to 2, which seems reasonable. 3, which would be the departure date, and then 4 would be time. But why is the calendar button itself actually like tab 103? So this is just a good example of what not to do with your semantic HTML, because there's compared to the first one, there's actually like no logical order for this. So tab 7 actually, let's say 8 jumps to the top of the page over here, 9, 10. So essentially a good example of what not to do. And a good way to assess this, you could use that accessibility button and actually show tabbing in this case. Have you, just curious, did you all show tabbing on your app as you all were designing or testing?
Oh, no, I mean, we tested but I mean, I'm assuming this happens only if you're not using semantic HTML, because otherwise, the screen reader looks at your elements and then they takes them in order. And the assumption for us that was the assumption.
Yeah, but I suppose in this case, it's also a much bigger site with a lot more elements on the screen at a given time. So it might be much easier to get lost in something like this compared to, let's say, Berry Cut, for example, where it's very straightforward.
But if everything it's a semantic element, so then everything that's a link or a button will be taken in order in the order in which was set up in the HTML. So even if it's big, you could still have just a default order, tabbing order that makes sense.
Yeah. How they created this, I have no idea. Like, how did they manage to get tab number 1 all the way over here? It could be that they had the elements in place and maybe they use styling to position it somewhere else. But yeah. So I can link this for you all afterwards to tear apart if you need to. Yeah, and there are some resources as well that I could share with respect to it. I also thought that link that Mark had shared with respect to Apple's human interface design was fairly interesting to see that Apple and other companies actually have guidelines on how they would actually design these things. So, like he was saying, you could actually feel free to just copy those things because it's already been well defined by many other companies. And from what he was saying, it seems like Apple has a good focus on how to make things accessible.
Yeah, all big companies have, like Microsoft has. Actually, Andrew had a really good webinar on this kind of on I forget there's a specific word, like when companies have like kind of like an overall approach to accessibility, and they have actually a kind of like a path one to follow. So Microsoft is really good about it. I know, even though Microsoft is really not well liked, but they have a good policy about it. W3 has some documents there. Obviously, Google and Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Microsoft has changed a lot of their positions over like in the last decade or so. Like they've become a lot more consumer oriented and accessibility oriented for sure. Like I think they're one of the few, like I think they had like this like for Xbox they actually had like a special control designed that would allow for inputs other than traditional touch, and you could just mod it in any specific way you wanted.
They're
just
so
to enable
cool.
So I thought that was really inclusive of them.
I think there's still this leftover hate from the time, Bill Gates was at the helm, and, they're the monopoly and stuff like that. And so, but that didn't make it all the way to Romania, because for me, it's like when I was like 20-some, when first time I opened a Excel spreadsheet, I'm going to be a fan for life. I mean, they have to murder somebody for me not to like them anymore, so yeah.
Yeah, I think they managed to change their public perception a whole lot. Maybe people still don't love them, but I think they've been doing a whole lot better in terms of not being like this big greedy corporation anymore. But don't quote me on that one.
It was actually a post something somebody shared, actually kind of like referring to this. They're saying, you hate Microsoft, but do you use VS Code? Do you use GitHub?
GitHub.
And, it's like something, whatever, and then change your perspective. It was really funny. Like I had to. Speaking of LinkedIn, because I saw it this morning, and there's this like open contribution article, and I think it was like AI generated because it wasn't really making sense. But they're like, how do you make your product accessible and inclusive? And obviously people just chimed in. And this one person, I just couldn't believe it that one could be so public about it also, It's like, well, yes, it's a good idea to consider accessibility, but as long as it doesn't cause grievance to your target group. And especially if this is an in-house product, then you can get away. I mean, that was just the gist of it. And I was so close to just like putting a reply. So I had to respond. I didn't respond to him in particular, but actually made a point of saying, you can't decide or you can't assume who your users are going to be, and I was like, but so this is the world we live in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think unfortunately there are people out there with those opinions. So you all having a good grounding in accessibility will give you an advantage in your jobs as you move forward, because employers know that, hopefully they do, or you can educate them about why accessibility is important, but most of them do know that it's important. And so you being able to show that you know that will be really helpful to you.
All right, so let's pass it over to Chase to run through this week's plan, I should say.
So just kind of revisiting this issue 13, kind of making the design and then maybe implementing some of it in a framework. It looks like your current PR really tackles all of that and kind of more. So I guess just wanted to check in. I saw you had look like a very cohesive like Google document as well, but I'm checking to see if you guys wanted to like maybe plan out a little bit of what issues you wanted to tackle, or like what kind of features or anything else this upcoming week.
So since this is the accessibility week, I think we still have the issue of the disable button. And I think we have to make a decision whether we refactor the code so we actually don't rely on the button being disabled to prevent calls to the backend in case the input is not valid, or we can disable it. So this will be a case where we can disable with ARIA disabled. So that announces the screener announces that it's disabled, but in fact it's not disabled. So we can use basically what I'm saying is like we can use the CSS, or actually it's a HTML attribute, I'm sorry, disabled, because actually that prevents the screen reader from noticing the button. So if I rely on a screen reader, I don't know that the button is there. So we disable with we let the screen reader know with ARIA disabled, and then we use JavaScript or React to actually disable the button. And then we'll have to take care of the CSS also, and in a way that it's still accessible in terms of color contrast. Yeah.
Marina, maybe you can also refer to the Apple Human Design Guide that Mark shared. Maybe they also include some best practice on how to do a disable button.
Or do you remember what Mark had said about the color in that case? Because he was talking about, I think it was changing the color of the font to increase the contrast.
Yeah, was he referring to the color? I recall he referred to the color of the blue background on the button.
Yeah, I think what he meant was the color of the blue button was very dark. So having black text on a dark color reduced contrast. So it should be a lighter color in that case.
Okay, then Raquel already tackled that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one reason. Another reason the disabled attribute is not preferred is because it's like even for non-screen reader user, it's too faint by default, and that's an issue with a lot of accessibility people also when it comes to placeholders, so don't rely on a placeholder because of the contrast. And I don't think there's a way for us to control the styling of placeholders, and so, yeah. So like little things like this, in terms of accessibility, I think we'll do a thorough, walk through all the features, apart from, I'm assuming, some of the design issues that are left.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds great. What do y'all have left on your must-have list? Is there still things on that?
We definitely want to add the logout feature. So when the user is on a list, they can go back to the home screen or re-enter a new list.
Awesome. And then, so if we are able to tackle both of those, kind of our accessibility review, and then kind of a logout feature, there's a few other on the list y'all are looking at.
Yeah, the model is kind of, we added the background and now it's hiding behind the background. We were playing around with the Z index, but couldn't bring it to the front. So that's a bug we need to fix next week.
Oh yeah, it's also the oh God, I'm forgetting the word. The flicker of the pop-up for when we add items to the list. A few weeks ago we said we're gonna look into it to see if we can oh, I'm forgetting my
Do you mean
my
the
brain is
animation?
thinking. Yes, that was the word. Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Um,
You're sick. You're doing great, Karina. Don't worry.
oh, you should have seen me a few days ago when I was just like kind of like I think they were looking at me and they're like, "What is she saying? Let's ignore her." Yeah, the animation. I'm sure there should be a way to kind of like lower the speed and
Is it like reduce motion?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh man, I
That's all right.
can't.
Do you want to make issues here for any of these, or is your Google Doc working kind of as a better place for that?
I'm indifferent. I mean, I think it was working well for all of us. I don't know what the others think.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Yeah, really excited to see the app kind of grow in this next week as well. It's looking really great.
I mean, this is not a criticism addressed to you mentors, but I'm curious how come accessibility is kept at the end. Do you know what the reason behind like that? I would add again, it's not a criticism, but I'm what was the reason behind the decision of not sharing this at the beginning? Do you
Yeah,
know?
that's a valid question. I think it's tough because I think everything is important. And so I think my understanding is that like some of the collaboration focused learning modules are just more going to help you with the main point of Collab Lab is learning those collaboration skills. So learning it earlier gives you more time to practice, whereas accessibility is also important, but it not having done the learning module doesn't prohibit you from collaborating with one another. So I think it's just we have too many things that are super important, and so something has to come last. But yeah, I don't know. If you do have feedback though about the order of the learning modules we've done, I think we're always looking to improve. So definitely.
I did reach out to Andrew actually about it.
Oh, great. Good. Good.
I was like way in the beginning because I requested an accessibility channel and he wasn't sure about it. So that's why if I have questions, I reach out in the learning space channel.
Yeah.
He did say things are gonna change with the next cohort. Like he did say that the accessibility it's gonna start with accessibility and it's gonna be something that's gonna be kind of like enforced along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Because I
did.
think that you're right. It is important. And I think you all have you're in better shape now because you have been paying attention to it from the beginning. And teams that don't have the learning module early on, at this stage in their project, now they're trying to go back and make sure everything's accessible, which, as we know, is not the best way to do it. You want to have it built in from the beginning. So I think that's a really valid point, and I'm glad that you reached out.
I think one argument may have been that this was a design, like these 2 weeks would have been more design focused. So maybe just to draw your attention to some of the accessibility, or just have those things in mind as you were designing this week. But yeah, I think it probably would make sense to have those ideas in much earlier to say, okay, let's consider these things.
Certain things are like, when we made the decision, certain things that look like the button, but they actually have to be a link because, as soon as the URL changes, it is a link, whether you start as a button or not. So certain things like this, and those accessibility reasons. And obviously, I think all of us who are learning how to code now, like, I don't know who would use a div. Let's say you have a nav bar, like why would you use a div? I mean, I know, supposedly better for styling. You have more freedom when you style things and when you position them, than maybe a button. But I would use the word our generation of front-end developers, I think we are used with HTML5, so just by default, we use a lot of semantic HTML, but still, it's good to be aware not to do certain things.
So I had a question, so I know you're very focused on accessibility from day one. With the use of the libraries that were implemented, though, were any of those attributes or elements lost as you were refactoring to use the new libraries? Or were you able to maintain everything as it was in terms of all the accessibility tags and attributes?
The 2 libraries, when we installed it, I tested it for just a notification one. And I believe Corina also tested that with the model.
Yeah, so we tested the model. I mean, I don't know in terms of, I really, I mean, I learned a lot of, Tailwind this week, but I still don't know the nuances. I don't think that would have affected.
I learned a lot of Tailwind. Model gender.
So,
Asla.
Sorry,
and so, yeah, I think it's the, of course, I forgot the word again. The motion with the
animation.
Animation. Oh, I'm gonna have a cheat sheet. Yeah, so that's the only thing that we need to look at it in terms of the libraries we've used.
Okay.
And,
so what I meant was did you all lose any of your elements? Because some libraries give you pre-made elements to use, or you have to use their version of that element. So did you lose any of your original elements as a result of implementing the library?
I don't think so. I think no.
Yeah, because Daisy UI was basically kind of like Bootstrap and it's still using Tailwind, so it's just basically adding class names. It didn't modify that much. I think the maximum we did was just creating extra components for different buttons, just to use different styles for different buttons, but it's still the same things we had before.
Yeah, nice. It's good. So that means it should very much be possible to implement accessibility from very early on.
Yeah, and I would say also, Raquel did a really good job, like using the contrast checker.
I learned from you.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. You talk about color contrast. I'm like, okay, let me search here, research about color contrast plus accessibility. So that's how, yeah.
It's a very interesting team. You have Aslan with a design background. You have Raquel who's very much into graphics and design and those kind of things. You have Karina who's the accessibility expert, and then Shangwan who's Shangwan is the lead code expert. It's all the algorithms. It's like by your posts combined.
We should start our own company.
Yeah.
We only
We
need each
could
other.
just go to San Francisco all together and just
Well, you three can go, okay? Because I'm can.
you can even you can join us
We can
remote.
just you'll do with me on Zoom. Yeah, no. Too old to move.
Fully remote, Corina.
You guys, I don't know. I think everyone has watched the Silicon Valley, the Pied Piper company. We
Yeah.
could be that, yeah.
Please don't be that.
Can't believe that we only have 1 week left.
It's flown by.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of, I don't know. It's like because I was so on my own and I joined some communities, but mostly on my own. So now it's almost like, once you have something, you get used to it. Because before I didn't feel necessarily the need, because for like 10 months I was on my own, and now it's like it's gonna feel like a huge loss. Yeah, I was just thinking about last night. Because I keep like writing. I have like so many drafts of like blog posts. And I know for me that's a coping mechanism, like I remember when when I left teaching, I actually kept, you're gonna say I'm crazy, but I kept like making lessons plans. I tutor, I volunteer, I tutor at the library, I help with math homework, and I used to run like a math club, so it wasn't like regular lessons, like just this like kind of like quirky math problems, even though I didn't necessarily have anyone specific for the next day to make the plan, but I would make it. So, and I know that was a coping mechanism. It's kind of like I'm doing something that I love, even though it's for nobody. And now it's with the posts, like I keep like writing, because I'm not going to think, it's kind of like I'm talking to somebody or preparing, knowing that I'm going to lose this space. And so the transition is going to be much easy. Yeah, just.
Well, if you want my phone number, just ask. you
I
don't need to
will.
lose me.
I will. Oh, definitely. I will. And then, so if you see like 3 LinkedIn posts in a day, you should say, okay, Corina is in a really bad mood right now. That's the secret for me. I'm just gonna, this is like reach out. Okay, are you okay, Corina? Because when you see if it's just 1 per week, you'll say, okay, she's better now. That's my secret. You know it now. Everybody's gonna think, oh, she keeps like posting. Yeah, that's why I'm posting. No, I mean I love thinking about it. Like and I'm so used, when you teach every day and you need to sometimes change your lessons from one day to another. So I'm so used to, like, if I know something well, like just give me half an hour and I have a lesson for you. So this is, it's nice to have your mind focus on something.
Yeah, that's a productive way of channeling your emotions. So that's good. Even if you're feeling stressed, doing something like that, writing posts is a great way to channel it. But we will reach out if it's too many.
Or maybe LinkedIn would block me. I don't have to necessarily share them, but that's the thing, because you put them on your blog and it's like, okay, I'm going to share it because now I know, they go somewhere, if it maybe one person looks at them, it just kind of, I have LinkedIn audience be my student. But Aslan convinced me to start TypeScript, so maybe that will kind of
Nice.
kind of channel my attention towards something.
So for next week's demo, are we going to have more time? Is this the final demo?
Go, Caitlin.
Sorry, yes, it's the final demo. And yeah, you'll have a little bit more time than usual because we'll just have the demo and retro. And we won't have to talk about issues for the upcoming week. So yeah, definitely try and come like with a polished presentation if you can, because then this is something you can show to future employers to kind of showcase the project you've been working on. So because the YouTube link will be available to you later. So yeah, good question. Anyone else have any questions about your last week? Everyone ready?
They've been ready from day one, from
They
day zero.
have.
All right, well, if you're all ready to go, I'd say go get them. I think you're like 95% of the way there already from what we've seen today and from Mark's feedback as well. So keep on crushing it.
Yeah.
As usual, reach out in Slack if you need us. I think Caitlin, you're doing no, is it? Oh, Chase is doing office hours this week. Yeah. So you have one last chance to ask any questions you need. You could grill Chase if you want, because he has a lot of knowledge about all these things.
Good luck, y'all.
All right. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.